We're going to talk about one of those principles today, and that principle is the rituals principle. And so I want to actually bring up a passage from your book. You say a ritual is any practice that marks a time or event as special or important. These actions are imbued with meaning. They connect the present with things in the past and with our hope for the future. So that's a great place to start. Give me an example of some rituals that you see in communities.
Well, the good news is, Seth, is we have a lot of rituals in our lives that many of us take for granted. Birthday rituals, for example. I think you and I and everyone listening has attended a birthday. And in our country, a birthday ritual often includes a cake, candles, some singing, usually friends, and some exchanging of gifts. Now, that doesn't necessarily happen in a community, but the idea is there's a ritual. There is an action that indicates that a certain time, in this case, a birthday, is more special than other times. And when we look at communities that stick together, they have rituals, some kind of action that indicates, hey, this time is special. When we have new members, when we've had some success, when we're getting through a tough time, when we've had a big loss, there is something that is done that acknowledges that. And one of the things that's going on in our culture is, for better or worse, Americans are largely running away from their home faith traditions, often for good reasons. What we also often lose when we leave our home faith traditions, we no longer participate in a community that has rituals that recognizes when we have matured and changed in our lives. And so many of us are missing experiences where the people around us gather and acknowledge that we're changing. And we call these rites of passage. So in communities, it can be very powerful when there's a gathering that acknowledges you're no longer a student, you're a teacher, or you're no longer new, you're experienced, or you're no longer single, now you're married. Like whatever that is, there's a ritual for that. And, we talked briefly in our last conversation how when I was a Peace Corps volunteer, I spent literally months of training and preparation. And there was a moment, there was a ritual when someone from the State Department said a few words about the founding of the Peace Corps. And amongst the things that happened is I was given a pin with the Peace Corps logo for me to wear on occasion. And that was a ritual acknowledging that I was going from a candidate to an actual Peace Corps volunteer. And I wish that everybody who's participating in a community, be they living overseas or bicycling together, that there's a moment where they get to gather and acknowledge what is changing and how a particular time is special.
So we talked about initiations before. An initiation can be a ritual, but there can be a lot of other rituals as well. As people make their journey through the community. Is that what I'm understanding?
Absolutely. So my son is part of a martial arts community. He's studying martial arts, and we've talked a lot about community at his gym. And one of the things they have built in their process are the belt ceremonies, where students earn a new belt, and the entire class gathers, and there's certain words said, and there's certain traditional activities made for a student to get a new belt. And that's in a moment where that student recognizes that other people in the studio recognize that they're maturing in the tradition. Obviously, receiving belts has been around for a long time in this country in martial arts. But the idea can be used anywhere. This idea that when we notice someone is maturing in our community, be that academic, athletic, political, philanthropic, volunteering, for example, there's a moment where we acknowledge that someone has matured.
I noticed that last year there were a lot of rituals in my life. For example, we had a baby shower for one of my stepdaughters. My other stepdaughter, got her degree. She graduated. And she went to an online school, so she didn't necessarily feel a lot of connection to her fellow students. She wasn't sure whether she wanted to go to the graduation because the students are spread all over the country. They held a couple of graduation ceremonies in different places. So we wound up driving down to Ohio, and there was this, and she wore the gown and walked across the stage and everything. And I'll never forget her saying afterwards, I didn't really think I wanted to go or it was going to be important. And she said it was a big deal. Like it made her feel part of something. And I think this speaks to the meaning of these rituals and why the meaning is so important. Can you elaborate on the meaning?
Absolutely. So I think that's a fantastic example. She was clearly part of a student community, right? Even though she was physically removed from them. And she voiced something that I've noticed in my travels, that people very often underestimate the power and the importance of rituals. And in a graduation ceremony, it's pretty predictable, right? And there's usually nothing unique about them, right? We know there's going to be a stage and families in chairs, and there's going to be black robes, and there's going to be walking across the stage. Like, it's not creative and dramatic, and yet it can be profoundly meaningful.